You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. You are listening to Phins Factor, presented by DolphinsTalk.com, where it's all Dolphins talk all the time. Now, here are your hosts, Manny and Marissa.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is another episode of the Phins Factor, episode 2. And no, you're not being catfish. Marissa Marino has not turned into someone else. She had a situation come up, which took priority, and she's not going to be with us today. But filling those shoes, Mr. Jason Sarney of DolphinsTalk.com is with me today to go over today's topics, go over this week's news. Jason, thank you for filling in the big shoes that Marissa Marino left behind. How are we doing today, sir?
We're doing good. I'm sorry to disappoint everybody out there, but the best that I can do is that we do have a Marino hanging up behind me. So
right.
I know they're not in relation, but we do have the Marino spirit and hope all is well with Marissa. But thanks for having me, Manny. I always love chopping it up with you.
Listen, I enjoy chopping it up with you since the battered days to where we are now, the conglomerate that's turning into DolphinsTalk.com. But we had exciting news this week, and let's go ahead and give a quick shout out. Cat for Life is in the comment section. Big WB is in the comment section. C-Dub, Hooked Up Joe, all showing love already. Already 130 plus watching over the platforms of YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting the Phins Factor on its episode 2. Like I said, Jason Sarney will be filling in the shoes today. Go over these topics today. We have a few good ones. I think we should start with the one that brought me the most thinking. I thought about this one over and over again, and it was during the press conference at the owners' meeting. Was Mike McDaniel potentially considering giving up play calling duties last year? And when I heard that come out of his mouth, the initial aspect was like, yeah, he should have done that. But then you think about it. Jason, there was a reason that Mike McDaniel was brought here to the Miami Dolphins to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And there's plenty of great offensive minds that pass up the play calling to other people. But when you look at the current coaching staff that the Miami Dolphins have, you got Darrell Bevel, the quarterback's pass game coordinator, Frank Smith with some knowledge as far as potentially calling plays. But being that Mike McDaniel is technically the architect to this offense and the way it goes, when I heard that he was potentially giving it up, again, initial thought process, well, yeah, maybe he should have. There was plenty of times that he messed up. There was plenty of times that we should have ran the ball on 3rd and 1 instead of going 3 straight passes. But for me, just like Tua, Mike McDaniel is also improving from year to year. I think that him giving up the play calling last season would have been an error, because I think the best way to learn is by learning on the job. At least that's the way I learn. What about you? When you heard that he was potentially giving up his play calling abilities, what do you think?
I mean, look,
play calling. What do you think of it?
I never endorse him giving up the play calling. I mean, he's obviously an offensive guru, genius, savant, whatever you want to say. What I would love in his 3rd year is to kind of amend some of the habits that either he has grown accustomed to, or let me put it this way. I was doing a little Mike McDaniel research, and one of his old receivers from the Cleveland Browns was just saying how much of a genius he is, and just how sometimes he just wants to, for better or for worse, do it his way and almost decide that it was his way. Told you, did it. But you know what? Sometimes you have to just be like, sometimes that could work, and other times you just have to fix it. And there's the minor couple of fixes that I want him to go into year 3. The running, when and where, when to utilize something like a screen pass. The thing, Manny, that drove me crazy more than anything. Look, I love a good screen. I think it's beautiful when it works. But when you're looking for 1 or 2 yards on 3rd and 2, you don't do a screen pass when you put the ball in the ball carrier or the receiver's hands, now -3 yards from the line of scrimmage. So now you need, with 3 defenders coming at you, 5-6 yards for the first down. So I don't dislike the play. I dislike it on 3rd and 2. On 2nd and 1, sure. So if you lose and you're on 3rd and medium, you can get that back. So that's what I'm talking about. I don't dislike the play calling with the play design and the talent that he has. I just want the situations to be fixed. And that'll be good.
I'm with you on that because, again, there was plenty of opportunities. And if you're a Dolphins fan and you've been watching every single game that Mike McDaniel's been a coach of, whether it was clock management in year 1 or not running the ball effectively or enough in year 1. And then again, at times getting away from it last year. Listen, when you have running backs in the backfield that are averaging 5 yards a carry, you got to trust them a little bit more in those short yardage situations. And I get it. A lot of those yards came from outside zone runs. Nothing really up the gut, but there were times that Raheem Mostert busted through that between the guard and the center, and he got you a good chunk of yardage. I'm just saying I don't think that he's going to learn how to be a great coach by giving up his play calling abilities. Andy Reid still does it. I don't think that's the way to go. Comment section, obviously, we're going to get to you guys and see what you guys think about him potentially giving up his play calling. He did say he's going to do it in the spring through OTAs, through minicamp, training camp, and potentially into the fall. We'll see how the team moves with him at play caller. For me, and I have a quick question for you, Jason. If he's on the fence about it, wouldn't it be better, because he's already been doing it for 2 years, wouldn't it be better to go through OTAs, minicamp, training camps with potentially Darrell Bevell calling plays or Frank Smith calling plays and see how that goes? Like, wouldn't testing that theory now through those, when it's not as important, be the better way to go instead of him still doing it and then come season, all right, now I'm going to pass up these play calling abilities? What's your thought process on that?
I think that would create the question. So the whole time period that's going on is the evaluation between whomever he would anoint the play caller. Is it working? I think it sets up a lose-lose, even in a win. So if let's say the new play caller is doing great. All right, wow, he's better than me at play call. Yeah, that could create a little bit of the George Costanza hiring the secretary who wants the raise, and a secretary can't make more than a boss. Well, you don't want your play caller out play calling your head coach when your head coach is brought in to call the plays and be the offensive genius that he was advertised. So I think it's creating a ready-made loss no matter what happens. And I'd rather him go in and amend, like I mentioned, like I know you want, and I know we all want. We all want the offensive guru in 10 years for us to look back and say Mike McDaniel revolutionized and look at what we have because of it. We're not there yet. I think he can come close to getting where we need him to be, but this is the year he needs to do it. And I think it's a couple of little tweaks, but the foundation is there. He is the real deal. He just needs to be the real deal consistently and in the most appropriate times. 4th down, 3rd downs, 4th and short, and when you need it the most on the road in the playoffs. And then we got something.
All right, so before we move on to the next topic, I think we're both in agreement. Mike McDaniel should not give up his play call anymore.
No, he should not. He should keep it going. Just tweak the timing.
Little tweaks. Right, little tweaks. We'll get you to be where you need to be, Mike McDaniel, at least from a fan's perspective. The other news that came out is when he was asked about OBJ, Mr. Jason Sarney, he said a contract has been offered to Mr. Odell Beckham Jr. The football is technically in his court, or the field, however you want to go ahead and say that. But when you talk about us and the wide receiver number 3 on this team, Jason, you're talking about Cedric Wilson, you're talking about Braxton Berrios, you're talking about Chase Claypool. There was a revolving door at the wide receiver 3 position last year where nobody really took it to the next level. They were serviceable at best. I'm being kind. But when you talk about Odell Beckham Jr., you're not getting the Odell that basically almost put up 2,300 yards in the first 2 seasons. You're getting a little bit more run-down Odell Beckham Jr. You're getting a little bit more matured, we hope, Odell Beckham Jr. But still, last year his numbers in targets tied for 65th, receptions tied for 71st, receiving yards 565, that was tied for 59th, and eventually receiving touchdowns tied for 54th. When you look at these numbers, they're not gaudy by any means. But They're definitely serviceable numbers for a wide receiver 3, which is what he'll be on the Miami Dolphins. When they take away your Tyreek Hill and they take away your Jaylen Waddle, now you're talking about Odell Beckham Jr. basically being lined up against linebackers. They're basically being lined up against nickel corners. I'll take that matchup any day of the week. How are you feeling about Odell potentially being a Miami Dolphin?
I got a loaded answer here because, I mean, look, he's got 9 full seasons of service in the NFL with never playing 17 games and one 16-game season. So there's obvious injury risk there. And clearly, as you referenced, in raw statistics, the rankings, he ain't Odell from the Giant days. I did a couple of deep dive numbers. I know he had one good year in Cleveland his first year, but if you want to look at his years as a Giant, he had 59 games as a Giant, and he had 6.6 receptions a game as a Giant, 92.8 yards as a Giant per game, and those were phenomenal numbers, and 10.5 targets a game as a Giant. The last couple of years, I know he missed one full year, but 2020 to 2023, he had 35 games played, so essentially 2 full seasons. 189 targets, 102 receptions, 1,421 yards. That's basically half his production easily. 5.4 targets a game, 2.9 receptions a game, and a very low 40.6 yards per game. And last year, it was even lower if you just look at last year's year in and of itself per game. 2.5 receptions a game on 4.5 targets a game. So, with that said, the money offered to a potential wide receiver 3, who, if you look at last year, the Dolphins' 3rd leading receiver in targets per game was Cedric Wilson Jr. at 2.5 per game. Then it was Braxton Berrios at 2.1. You had 10.7 for Tyreek, 7.4 for Jaylen. So my question to you, Manny, is how much do you want to pay a 9-year veteran who we're going to throw the ball to no more than 4 times a game? My equation is about probably a 1.5 base with incentives that are not going to be attainable. I don't pay him. I offer him something, but I don't pay him. You know what I mean?
When I was thinking of the numbers yesterday, there was a number I had in my head was $8 million. $8 million, and like you said, loaded with incentives. I don't think you're getting him for $8 million. I don't know what the contract offer was to him, but I feel like $8 million with a bunch of incentives is right around the alley that I would go with. Again, I don't think this is the same Odell Beckham that was been causing all the drama he was earlier in his career. Like I said, I think there's some veteran leadership to him. He's been on a championship team with Sean McVay. You know, he played in Baltimore last year. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens, you think of a winning franchise. There must be something that he's picked up being able to play with Sean McVay and then also on the Baltimore Ravens. So for me, I'm somewhere in the cusp of $8 to $9 million with incentives. What about you?
That's a lot of money for looking at what the Dolphins need to do. I get it that it would be a fun, idealistic signing if he is 80% of what he could be as a talent. But I think we probably see 40% at max with injuries and just going into his 10th year. So with that said, there's only $4 or $5 million that the Dolphins have in salary cap. Then they're going to get back the 17 or 18 million from Xavier, minus 8 or 9 right off the bat for your draft class. And then you need that like $6 to $7 or $8 million as like your emergency fund going into the season. And they're not done signing other people yet, too. So I don't know how much money they have for one player who essentially, I mean, what are we looking for idealistically game-wise from Odell? 12, 14? I think that would be incredible and almost, I think, a reach to expect at his recent injury history.
If you paid him somewhere in the vicinity of 8 to 10, and let's say he gave you a season of 500 yards, 5 to 7 TDs, would that be numbers that you're comfortable with if you're paying him that much as a third option on this team?
I mean, look, it all goes back to like the timing of things, right? Like if it's 3rd and 4 in the red zone and that touchdown beats the Bills, yeah. One of those 5 touchdowns. If one of those 5 touchdowns is in December on the road against the Chiefs or the Ravens or whomever they play or in the playoffs, whatever, sure. I don't need stat stuffing from Odell Beckham Jr. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about the fantasy aspect of what he can do. It's all about, to me, if you're looking for a third receiver, reliable for 17 weeks, 17 games, anytime we call your number, because we're calling Tyreek and we're calling Jaylen's number 90% of the time. Literally 90% of the time, it's going to one of them. So when we need you, you got to be there for us. And I don't know if I'm paying you that much amount of money. If I could draft someone, I could get someone off the street who can get thrown to 2 or 3 times. I just don't know if the luxury item in Beckham, even if it's a vintage luxury item, is what they need to do. You know, they have a couple of more needs that I'd be comfortable with. If I come back and I see a contract that's half of what you said or extremely team friendly, I'm not going to hate it.
By all means,
but
right.
I think the offer is extremely low, almost like the Dalvin Cook offer was probably extremely low, whereas their camp is going to be like, hey, listen, someone's probably going to pay you more. How much do you want to play for the Dolphins? Well, how much more are people going to pay me? Because I don't care who you are, $2-3 million, that talks. That talks a heck of a lot.
And again, no state tax. Listen, and that's kind of the number that I'm talking about. 5 to 6% that leads it up to 8, and that would be my point. Something low, but then a bunch of incentives that he could potentially get that $8 million from us. Listen, that 1 year, $15 million contract that the Jets just gave Mike Williams, that is ridiculous. I haven't taken a shot at the Jets yet, but I will. That's my one thing that I do every episode. But thank you for watching Newfoundland. Papa Paul, I need you guys to join our show tomorrow night. Listen, the DMs are open, my boy. Go ahead and shoot us a DM, and we'll definitely get to talking. Wesley Gary, thank you so much for joining the show. John O'Hanlon.
Respect to Papa Paul and Johnny O.
Factor, episode 2. And by the way, somebody brought up a good point right here, David. Coach makes too many stupid mistakes. He needs to be able to focus, let somebody else do the play calling. That's fair.
That's a great point. You know, and as much as I love Coach, it's almost like when he gets asked a question. I love when he answers the question, although he says 427 words when 105 would do. So same idea with when the push comes to shove, when there's 1 minute left, it's third down, he's on the road. I think his brain is going so many different places. He's not thinking about the wrong thoughts, but it's almost like, okay, 5 seconds, stop the ball. And like, he needs to pace himself and get, it's almost like, and I say this so loosely, I hope I don't go like, it's almost like coaching ADD. It's almost like he's got a coaching ADD, right? And I think he'll get developed, but he's still so young where I don't mind it because he's so good at peak, and he's done things with this offense statistically that we haven't seen like ever.
Quite a while.
Really?
Right.
In quite a while. Right.
So this next topic may open a can of worms, and it's a touchy subject, but it is involving Tua. But in case nobody's seen this clip before, I sent you the link for it. I'm going to play the link here because I would love for people who potentially in the comment section haven't seen this before to be able to take a look at it. We'll digest it right after. You ready? Here we go. This is Joel Klatt.
I am. Go for it.
Joel Klatt talking about Michael Penix at 21.
Dolphins are on the clock. This is, I think, a very fascinating pick. And the reason is because they need to make a decision on Tua's contract. He's entering year 5 of his rookie deal. And as I explained earlier, there are so many advantages to not paying your quarterback that second deal. I'm going to say this with as much compassion as I can, in particular being a guy that struggled immensely with concussions. I suffered 10 concussions in my 3 years as a quarterback in college. Some of you might be going like, oh, now it makes a lot of sense. And to those of you, touche. Giving Tua a huge deal, I think, is risky. I think it's risky. He has been injury prone outside of that, but that's clearly something that I can just, well, let me just say, like, from firsthand experience, it doesn't get better. It's not like a ligament. Okay, so what ends up happening is less and less of an impact creates more symptoms and a greater degree of those symptoms. So that makes me nervous. I have said this before. A guy that I could see stepping into that offense with that coach, with those weapons, and looking like he did in college is Michael Penix. Imagine starting over with a rookie deal at that position, solidifying some of the things that they've got, in particular in their skill position, and having a guy that, quite honestly, is a better downfield passer than Tua. Penix is a better downfield passer than Tua. Tua does a lot of things well. And in some respects, like if I was Sean Payton and Tua was on the open market, that would be a perfect marriage. So I'm not saying that like Tua is not going to be in the league, but I'm just saying if you're the Dolphins, you got to really think about this. Yes, Tyreek had a great year. How many times did Tyreek have to adjust on an underthrown ball? Now, maybe that's a bad example because the guy is so fast, but it happens a lot. It happens a lot. Meanwhile, the best attribute that Michael Penix has, the number one attribute, is his ability to throw with great leverage and accuracy down the field. Down the field.
Well, Jason, I don't want to go first. I'm going to let the brains of this show go first because there was a lot to digest from the whole concussion conversation to underthrowing wide receivers. I feel like you're the right guy to go first on this one.
I think, and all due respect to him, and I know he had a nice couple of years in Colorado. He got 10 concussions. I know he had a severe, ridiculous one that probably derailed him as a prospect. He wasn't drafted. He tasted a little bit of, the NFL getting kicked around some, this isn't disrespectful, but I think that there's a national bias on Tua of what happened last year with a concussion. And there is a lack of, right. And there's a lack of giving him a benefit of the doubt of what he did this year. What he did this year was not miss a game. And what he also did, and I'm a guy who, Manny, we speak a lot. I've been known to be a bit of an anxious guy. I was not very anxious throughout the middle of the season when I saw how Tua was absorbing hits, taking contact, and basically, in a good way, folding when he needed to not get horribly hit hard or have a head snap back or get helmet to helmet or something like that. So number one, he's actually done what I think is already proven work to avoid certain avoidable injury. And he proved that already. Okay? Because he played a full season at an MVP level. Now also, here's my beef with national. I don't think he watched a lot of Tua in the Dolphins.
He definitely did not. He definitely did
not. Because the narrative is very easy to say that because Tyreek Hill is the cheetah and Tua is just this guy who we want to rag on, the air yardage. I implore him to go watch every single one of the touchdowns from Tua to Tyreek, and that's just not it. If you go back to the first week, if you go back to the Charger game, there were 3 or 4 dimes over the middle of the field. There was a bomb touchdown. There was the initial Kevin Harlan, he's got Hill, where Tua stepped up in the pocket. And then not to mention, I know it wasn't many air yardage, but that fade, if you want to call it that, in the corner of the end zone to Tyreek, that was you couldn't place that on a platter. Dime. And then probably the greatest game I've ever been to in Miami was the Denver home game. I mean, come on. He was putting the ball wherever Tyreek needed. The Giant game, the long 69-yard touchdown of the Giants. There was a long 40-yard touchdown by Carolina. The Philly touchdown. I mean, these were not plays where Tyreek Hill had to adjust. These were beautifully thrown balls. And lastly, Manny, on all these 13 touchdowns from last season, 4 of them from Tua to Tyreek, 4 were caught in the end zone, which means 0 yak. Okay? So of all the yardage in the air, air yardage on those touchdowns was 26.1 average. So that means that you're talking about 4 or 5 air yardage for those 4 touchdowns. So imagine the rest of the big plays. We're talking 40, 50 air yards for like 8 or 9 touchdowns here. I don't know what this man was talking about Tyreek adjusting to the ball. 1 long touchdown. The first Washington Commanders touchdown, I believe, Tyreek had to kind of just wait for it to drop in his breadbasket.
Right.
But the second one was pristine. So I don't know.
Listen, I feel like I should go, but the comment section got me. The comment section got me so far. Penix is an idiot. Yeah. The first 2 picks need to be transplanted either off. Preach
100%.
it. He's still concussed
100%.
if he doesn't see.
But here's the mind blow. Here's the absolute mind blow. Tua is 26 right now. Tua will be a 26-year-old, 5th-year starter with the Miami Dolphins. Michael Penix is going to be a 24-year-old rookie.
Mm-hmm. Here's my point, Jason.
Injury prone.
Comment section here. Help me out here. When you look at this Miami Dolphins football team, are we closer to being on the cusp of winning? And I get it. We've come up short 2 years in a row. But we've also had a team make the playoffs back-to-back years that we haven't seen since our early 2000s time. So if you looked at it as a whole, this team is closer to being a Super Bowl caliber winning team than they are being picking in the first 3 picks of the NFL draft in the coming years. All the talent that we have on offense, all the talent we have on defense, just simply throwing a rookie quarterback in there and hoping that he's going to get you the same production that Tua has already been involved in this offense over the last 2 years, that you think you're going to throw Michael Penix, a rookie, and he's going to have the same effect as Tua? I get it. Like, sometimes you just need people who have been in the game to just talk football. But I guess from a fan's perspective, I can't take that guy seriously at all whatsoever due to the points that he was trying to make. I saw times when Tyreek Hill was in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, who has a bazooka of an arm, and Tyreek Hill still had to wait for the ball to get there. I really don't think that a lot of national media watches Tua Tagovailoa at lengths. I think Dan Orlovsky is possibly the only one. That guy watches everybody's tape and then has great facts. And sometimes he's against Tua, sometimes he's for Tua, meaning in the aspect of he'll be honest with what he does great.
Well, he's objective.
Bad.
He's
Correct.
Objective, and he's a film junkie. So, like, he's not going to talk on anything that he hasn't seen, like, 15 sides of it and the all-22 and every angle. So, Orlovsky is the truth. What he says, he at least backs up with his own eyesight of the film. A lot of these nationals are just saying, all right, here are the numbers. Tyreek Hill going for 2,000. Tua can't throw long. No, that's wrong, folks.
Right. I agree. And to say the least, I think we're closer to winning, Jason. It goes without saying we're closer to winning. For me, it has to be offensive line in that first round. Listen, if JPJ's there, you better take JPJ. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to say it on air, but I'll be highly upset if that man's available and we don't run to throw the card at the people to call that sucker in. But we need to protect Tua. A lot of people complain about Tua being a one-read quarterback. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to break it to you. If he holds the ball any longer than that, he's going to get murked behind this offensive line because it can't stand to go to option number 2. By that time, somebody's already in his face. You need to get him protection. You need to have him have the ability to be able to look at option 2 and maybe even 3 with a better offensive line right now, to say the least. What do you have? Austin Jackson. You know he might play for you. Outside of that, you have a bunch of depth positions, but nobody that really screams to you, this guy is going to be a for sure starter. We have just 2 more topics, and they're bunched up into one. We're not going to spend too much on it because we want to hear from you guys as well, like we do on the Phins Factor. We want to open the lines, have you guys come on and talk about these topics, and just air it out, man. Air it out, no pun intended. 2 quick rule changes: the hip drop tackle, kickoff returns. I'll talk about the hip drop. I know it's in the middle, right? A lot of people are either for it or against it. From a player safety perspective, I'm okay with them banning the tackle. I get it. You're making it harder for defenses to be able to make the plays they need to do to stop, because they're trying to make it as offensive as possible. But if it's one of your guys, ladies and gentlemen, if it's somebody on your team, if you see Tyreek Hill go down and somebody just broke his ankle, tore his ACL, something due to a hip drop, you're going to feel some kind of way about it. I get it. If it happens to the teams, well, it is what it is. That's football. I also get that. But from a player safety standpoint, I'm okay with the hip drop tackle. What about you, Jason?
You know what? I with this one, I really just enjoyed. That might be the wrong word, but I relied on social media and football players on social media. You know, for example, Javon Holland didn't seem too happy with it. J.J. Watt, what are we talking about? Flag football here. Jonnu Smith, new tight end for the Miami Dolphins. Best point of the whole thing. Why don't we eliminate turf? Okay, Jono. Now we're talking like
he did have the best point.
If we're talking about player safety, but we're also talking about a sport like football. I mean, I would rather go back to the old school smash mouth hitting on just mud and dirt. You know, I mean, he made such a great point. He really did. And I just think that if you're looking at the majority of vocal players out there upset with it, this might be a miss of a rule change. And there's going to be what is it? What's going to constitute it? How many penalties are going to be called? How much time is going to be added? Stoppage of play? How much looking at these? This could open up. I think you mentioned the term a can of worms. There's going to be a lot of can of worms opened up, probably 15 minutes worth of game across the board with all this. So who knows?
The worst part about it for me, at least, this rule change. Again, I agree with it, but the worst part about it is that you're putting the game even more in the referee's hands. The game is mostly.
You make a really good point there. I mean, all you need is the bat phone to ring from the office at the late of a game and say, just throw that flag. Throw that flag. Hip tackle.
I hope it doesn't go that route, but let's go to the other side because I want to get some of these listeners in here with these topics today. Kickoff returns. Borrowed a little kickoff element from the XFL. Fan or not, for me, I'm not. Like, why don't we just, again, offense, you start at the 25, defense, get your butt out there and stop them from getting to the end zone. I don't think this new kickoff return is going to work. What about you, Jason?
This isn't just for sake of good podcasting, folks. I love it. Oh, I'm so excited. I really, truly am. I love special teams. Okay. And I think this is going to create, it's almost like, I also love equating different sports to football in comparison. It's almost like all of a sudden the middle reliever in baseball became extremely valuable. Well, once again, you know it's going to become extremely valuable? Coverage and return special teams, blockers and tacklers. These guys, undrafted free agents, 7th, 6th rounders. You're a backup running back, backup cornerback, backup wide receiver who's not going to make a team that way. Learn how to hit, learn how to tackle, learn how to return. Create something. Be someone who's going to use this rule to your advantage. Not every team is going to figure it out at first. Some of it's going to be a mess. We don't have the best special teams coaching.
I was about to say that. So you're saying you trust Danny Crossman. You trust Danny Crossman is what you're saying.
No, I don't. No, I like the rule. What I want, and ironically, the guy who was the component of the rule, or the guy who brought it up was Darren Rizzi, the guy who I once running special teams for life, but he's going to be a head coach one day, but not in Miami ever again. But you need a special teams coach, and there's one out there who's going to say, I got an idea with this guy, or here's what I have, here's my idea, and it's going to work. And there's going to be 20 teams that are going to be in the weeds, you know, but there's going to be 4 or 5 or 6 teams that I think are going to really, really take to this. And the Dolphins who have talent, now they need to scheme it. So I think this could be fun if the code is cracked. Someone's going to crack it. Someone's going to crack it.
You mean like the new tush push is what you're saying, the Philly tush push. You feel like there's somebody who takes advantage of the rules, basically what you're saying.
I mean, look, all you need to do is have all you need to do. the right 2 blockers on a return unit. And I'm not saying you create some sort of a wedge or a V formation or something, but you create some sort of a scheme where you know where your runner is going to be. You have your blocker set up. You have your lanes set up. And then if one miss, you got a guy who can make one miss. You're not having...
And you're out.
You're out. You're out. And if you can even incorporate laterals, oh, my God.
Listen,
oh, my God.
I get it. But for me, it's like, what are we doing here? And I agree with this comment right here from Newfoundland. Best game in pro sports, but all the rule changes made by the owners under the guise of player safety makes the game even more subjective, thus corrupt. I said it. Listen, you're not the only one that feels that way. I wouldn't go as far as some people who are throwing conspiracy theories out there. There's a lot of them. But I think the fact that the game has already been enough in referees' hands where you're like, the referee clearly just screwed this team, and we were the examples of some of them this past season. This hip tackle one, that one is, for me, is what's going to be the bigger issue, not this new kickoff. But the link has been dropped, ladies and gentlemen, for you to come on here and talk about today's topics. We have somebody, which I know him very well. Jason, I don't know if you know him very well, but this man is one of the kindest souls out there as a Miami Dolphins fan. I'm excited to get him on. The first one to the show, Mr. Papa Paul. Good sir. How are we doing today?
I'm doing good.
Well, Papa Paul, we
How are
went
you,
through.
Paul?
We went through.
Good, Jason. How are you? Yeah. As far as the hip tackle, I understand. As far as the players go, injury and stuff. But what we're going to end up getting is these guys are going to start going back to laying them out. You're going to see some hits. You're going to see big hits. And then they're going to be screaming about lowering your head and stuff,
right.
Things like that. That's the way I see that. The kickoff, I got to wait and see. Most of these kickers are kicking it out of the end zone anyway.
That's why I think there was an issue with it. It's like literally every single person was averaging kicking it out of the end zone. I think that was the majority of the NFL.
Yeah, so they said there was only 23% of kickoffs actually in a return.
Somebody brought up a very good point. Yeah, I think Braxton Berrios. Listen, he maybe now he has a chance, Jason, to run it for an actual touchdown, something he wasn't able to do last year. But Papa Paul, what about what do you think of Joe Klatt's Michael Penix Jr. at 21? Are you a fan or are you not a fan?
What I know about him, I'm really not a fan.
Yeah.
It's like Jason said, he's 24 years old. He's got injury issues as well. And Tua did everything he needed to do last year. We need to work on our trenches.
Yes.
We need to work on our trenches. Our O-line is so small compared to a majority of the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you said, he can't have more than 3 seconds to throw the damn ball, really. There's only been, I think last year, I could count him on one hand probably the amount of plays where he had more than 3 seconds to throw the ball.
That's fair. Yeah.
And most of that was in Denver game.
Fair enough. Jason.
Denver was like them on the lowest level of Madden. You could just have fun and just no one's going to sack you. It was just
right.
Put it on rookie and just let it rip. Unbelievable. But
now, Papa Paul, how did you feel about Mike McDaniel potentially giving up his play calling last year?
I wish he would give up.
Okay, there you go.
I wish he would give up his play calling because he's losing track of things. He's not sticking to the run when we should be sticking to the run.
Yep.
We're in the red zone. We have Mostert. We have a Chan. We have Brooks, which I think would be great for them, 3rd down and 2. And he doesn't use them. He's trying to pass the ball more, and he's supposed to be a run guru coach.
He was the run game coordinator in San Fran, so I agree with you, Jason.
And here's what I would love, and you make excellent points, Papa Paul. That's exactly where I'm at. And I know this is a fast team. The motions, the getting, and you said it earlier, Manny, the runs were outside. These were, zone scheme runs, not necessarily going into the inside gaps. But you know what? What if there was that little bit of balance where you have a Brooks or you bring in a little bit more of a reliance on Jeff Wilson on those short yards to go through those A and B gaps and to get some more of a power-based football. So if you put a 3rd and short power. I know that you might know what's coming, but there's plenty of people in sports and in football that something's coming, but you can't stop it. That's what we need on 3rd and 1, 4th and short and inches. Just
100%. 100%, Jason. My biggest thing last year was every team saw it coming, especially later in the year, was these pitches to the outside. You're pitching the ball 5 yards back. He's running 7 yards for only a 2-yard gain.
I'm with you, Papa.
Nailed it.
Any final thoughts on this week's news for the Miami Dolphins?
We don't necessarily need OBJ. I don't think we necessarily need them. We have good receivers. We just need to utilize more than just Waddle and Hill.
And I think Jonnu Smith is going to be a big part of that. I think that if you do get Tua some more offensive line help, he's going to be able to see Jonnu Smith attacking the middle of the field and be able to get him the ball, especially with the speed that Jonnu Smith brings at tight end. He's going to be a good third option. I agree. I don't think we need Odell, but I think we have what we have in-house already, and to be able to make it to the next step. And again, that's only including offensive line help here coming up in the draft. Papa Paul, I appreciate you, brother. I look forward to seeing you next season at East 12, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right,
peace,
Papa.
love, and fins up, everybody.
All right, brother. Have a good day, man.
Yep.
Be well, Paul. You're the best. He's one of the greatest, man. Nicest guy in the world. Love Paul.
I love Paul. Let's go ahead and bring up somebody who decided to join us on episode 1. He's back for episode 2. Mr. John O'Hanlon, the gray beard. Sir, how are we doing tonight?
Johnny-O.
What's
going on, my
Jason?
dude?
How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. Long time no see. It's been a bit. How you been?
Well, I live in Jersey, so I can't be down in Florida. I wish I could, but
up here, a little bit north of Philly. So I'm with you, man.
Yep.
Us Northeasterners. Manny's got the life down there, man.
I'm in South Florida, so can't say much there. But real quick, before I go to you, John, I love when people bring up this man's name. Right here.
Yep.
That's what we need.
He was Mr. First Down right there.
Yes,
never lost.
Yes, he was.
Undefeated. What was he, like 35-0 with short yardage? 35-0 or something like that.
If you saw Lou Polite, you know what we're talking about right now. That guy was a first down machine. But, John, we went through a plethora of topics today. By all means, the floor is yours. Let us hear how you feel about the things we talked about today.
The video you showed, the beginning of that guy's video, I kind of agreed, but after that, no, he was way off track. Tua did not underthrow Tyreek that much. Tyreek wasn't standing around waiting for the ball. What he's watching, or if he even watched it, is debatable because he's out of his mind.
Well, he is concussed.
Trenches. Yeah, he's concussed and still concussed. Trenches is where it's at. You know, you got to get offensive linemen, you got to get defensive linemen. Games are won and lost in the trenches. Mike McDaniel, I've said it since year one. I've repeated it many times on our podcast. If he's going to continue to play call, he needs to simplify it. Real simple, Mike. It's really simple. Set up a play. This is play 1, play 2, play 3, and have them on their wristband so they know what play 1 is, and just call play 1. You give them plenty of time to get up to the line and run the motions and the movement, and they could still snap it with 7-8 seconds left on the clock, not 1 or 2 seconds left. His play calling is so long, and we've talked about this. There is no time to audible because by the time everything's done, they got to snap the ball. He can't audible out of anything. He can't get to the line. And some of these fans are like, oh my gosh, he needs to do this. There is no time for that. It takes too long for Mike to get the play to Tua to get to the guys and then get to the line. Simplify it. Mike looked great in games, first couple drives a lot of times. And then when his first 15, 20 plays of the script were up, sometimes he looked lost. Sometimes he looked great. He's got to simplify things so he's always looking great. Third wide receiver, not sold on Beckham. If they get somebody else after June 1st or, wait to see who cuts who after June 1st, there come mini camps and who gets cut. You can always pick somebody up. There's plenty of guys that are going to be let go because of the rookies that come in. You can always pick up somebody there. What were some of the other topics you were talking about?
Play calling. Now, when you think about him again, last season there was plenty of opportunities where you're like, all right, maybe he should give it up. He should have gone differently there. Are you on the side of the fence that says he has to keep that play calling under him? Because
no, not at all. I wish he would either simplify it or give it up. Make it simple. I mean, listen, he's trying to make football so complicated that, just run the plays in practice. This is play 1, run it 5 times. This is play 2, run it 5 times. When I call 1, this is what we're running. They have wristbands. They all know what play 1 is. Just call 1. Now they got plenty of time to get to the line. Call play 13. They got plenty of time to get up there, line up, and know what they're doing. He's got to call.
So basically, it's not the implement. It's like the system of getting the actual play. Like his stuff is good, but it's how he interprets and communicates it from A to B to C to D.
Right.
And that's what I agree with you, John. I think you nailed it. It's like we love his football knowledge if you had a 95-second play clock. But you don't, right. So you gotta come on. You gotta go.
My biggest thing I go back to is the Buffalo playoff game. Why did we lose that game? We used all 6 timeouts to not have delay of game. All 6 of them. I've never seen that before in my life.
Well, the Miami Dolphins are known to show you things you've never seen before in your life. Real quick before we get you out of here, John, the rule changes: the hip drop tackle and the kickoff returns. How do you feel about both of those?
Both of them, I believe, are just make the game more offensive. Get more points on the board. Get people engaged in the game. Jason alluded to it earlier. Somebody's post that he read, and it was actually the first thing I thought when they came up with this was get rid of turf. Look at all the injuries at MetLife with guys blowing up knees and blowing up Achilles. And, if you're going to get rid of hip tackles because it can hurt an ankle or a knee, then you got to get rid of turf. There's no difference in either one of them. Go back and look statistically through the league at how many guys are getting hurt because of hip tackles and how many guys are getting hurt because of turf. I'll bet you it's very damn close over the last 10 years.
No, I'm with you. Listen, we lost our guy at MetLife Stadium this year.
Right.
Where if you were watching that game, you knew that as soon as he
absolutely.
popped up, you knew what happened. As soon as you saw him fall, you knew what happened.
I was at the game.
It destroyed the day. I mean, it destroyed the day. And I hate saying it as callously as that, but it deflated everything.
Right. Absolutely. And the worst part is if you go back and rewatch that, he actually hurts his Achilles the play before. Yeah. And he's actually limping to the line. And because he's a warrior, he's a football player, he's a beast, he wants to be out there. Right. He didn't take himself out, not realizing what it was going to do. And as soon as he tried to push off, boom, it snapped. He was hurt before that ball was snapped.
Dead on. And you know what? And Hard Knocks probably they had 50,000 cameras anyway. So I think they picked up on that because they were zooming in on the ankle. Like when we were watching Hard Knocks, it's like, how do they know this is coming? How do they? So you're dead on. It was definitely play A, did it. Play B, split it. Whatever. Yeah,
I like that.
He may have been done for the year. He may have been done for the year anyway from the previous play because if he
1,000%.
If he had already started to tear it, and I'm a guy who has 2 bad Achilles, I have to keep him very warm. I've had doctors tell me over the 5-10 years ago they're both going to break at some point. We don't know when. Yeah, I got 2 of them. They're very bad. So like in the wintertime, I got to really keep my feet and my ankles warm because if I don't, I can't walk.
Well, John, before we get you out of here, sir, you said it. You have a podcast. Go ahead and let these good people know when they're not listening to the Phins Factor where they can find John O'Hanlon.
Hey, I last Wednesday I gave you guys a shout out on the WCFL Wednesday nights at 8:45. I gave Phins Factor a shout out talking about how you guys started your new podcast and told people to jump in on Tuesday nights to see you. We're on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all of them. It's Wednesday nights, 8:45 WCFL. Your previous guest, Papa Paul, is the one that started it. Myself, Dolphin Winners, Tom O'Gara, Ethan Stepp, Miss Pam, we're all there. Mr. Polk is usually there. We got a lot of Dolphins fans from around the country jump on. We can have up to 10 people at one time. The only thing we tell you is be respectful, let people talk, no name calling, and Just enjoy the conversation.
And John, that's something that we talked about last week. I feel like there has to be more platforms where people can disagree, because obviously, listen, just this comment section, you're not going to agree with everybody's perspective at all times, but be respectful about it. Just understand they're viewing the game and they're viewing these players in a different light than you may be. So by all means, just accept that we're all going to feel differently about different things. And listen, we all, at the end of the day, love this team. We want to see them succeed. We all have different ideas about how that plan should come. But at the end of the day, we're just here showing our love, talking about the team we love. But at the end of the day, Chris Grier, Mike McDaniel, these guys are really going to be the ones pulling the reins, and they're going to be the ones calling the shots. But one quick question before, John, because I thought about it right at the very end. Is there a scenario, in your honest opinion, and I didn't even bring it up, so Jason, I'll ask you the same question. Is there a scenario that you think if the Miami Dolphins, it's been talked about that Vegas has us at 9.5, and by the way, last year they had us as the third toughest schedule going into it, and then all they said at the end of the year is we beat up a bunch of cupcakes. So please stop looking at that. There could be teams this year that you think they're going to be great, and then all of a sudden they're cupcakes too, and you're going to start talking trash about the Dolphins beating up cupcakes. But my question to you is there a scenario that you think that if the Miami Dolphins do not make the playoffs this year, it is goodbye to Tua if he's not under contract, and it is goodbye to Mike McDaniel at the end of the season if we do not make the playoffs?
I mean, listen, there's always that chance. And for the last 20 plus years, the Dolphins have been known to do that 2 or 3 years and out. If you're not producing, if you're not getting where you want to be, goodbye, we'll go find somebody else. We haven't had a coach more than 3 years in the last 20 years, which is sad. We had one retire. We had, Jimmy Johnson retired, and then, Nick Saban retired on us. I'm not going anywhere, and he's gone. And then you get, it's been a rotating, and me being, I'm not old, but as old as I am, I got to enjoy the late 70s, 90s, 80s, 90s. We had one coach, and whether it was a good season, a bad season, and there wasn't a lot of bad seasons, but you knew he was coming back. We now have got to the point, because of social media, a lot of it is, the clamoring on there with people, get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy, this, that, the other thing. Is our special teams coach the greatest guy? No, but you know what? Our special teams did not hurt us in too many games. One game that I can really think of.
Yeah. Obviously, the kick return. Yeah.
The big return. He outkicked his coverage on that one, which was sad because he didn't do that often, but he did outkick the coverage on that one, which gave him a wide open field. Yep. They're keeping him for a reason. I say it all the time. There's two things I say all the time. We don't have privy to the building. We don't get to hear the conversations. We don't know what's going on. We're fans, and let's wait and see what the team looks like and what happens. I'm the wait and see guy. Who are we going to draft? Who are we going to draft? Let's wait and see. Who are we going to pick up after June 1st? Let's wait and see. I root for anybody that puts on the aqua and orange.
I'm with you, John. I appreciate you, brother. Listen, I look forward to DM me the information. I'll go ahead and jump before I go to you, Jason. DM me the information. I would love to come by. I know Jason would probably love to come by. We'd love to take over your podcast here sometime coming up.
Absolutely. A couple weeks ago, we had on all the FODIes, the fans of the year. We had all 4 of them on, and the international fan of the year. We've had OJ McDuffie on, Troy Drayton, a couple others. Richmond Webb was on. We get some players on occasionally. Jason, you've been on once or twice, haven't you?
Absolutely. No, I love you guys. And John, I wanted to say, and I'm glad I could say this while you're still on, you were one of the first guys, as a Northeastern and one of those out of home Dolphin fans, so welcoming at the Dolphin events. You were literally one of my first awesome friends in this community. So always a special place in my heart for you, Johnny.
Absolutely, brother. Love you guys. Papa Paul, if you're still listening, put in the comments, put the link up for our podcast and people can see it.
Facts. Go ahead and drop that. All right, John, have a great one, brother.
Thanks for having me again, guys. Enjoy.
You're welcome, John.
You got it. I'll tell you this, Jason, before you answer the question that I just asked John. And somebody said it here in the comment section, Newfoundland. Consistency, but more so continuity. When you look at these teams that have won recent Super Bowl victories, they have continuity at the 3 major positions: GM, head coach, quarterback. The only way this team is going to continue to grow and be good for years to come. Where, you look at certain teams like the Baltimore Ravens, you look at certain teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, you look at certain teams, they're always at the top, the Dallas Cowboys, even though they don't win anything, but they have constant continuity. I think that you need that for the Miami Dolphins to continue to succeed. Your thought process if we miss the playoffs this upcoming year?
It's almost a thought process that I don't want to think about, but that's not answering the question. That's not fair. So if they do not make the playoffs, if they don't make the playoffs, you're going to need to bring in someone who's going to make all the right decisions. And by definition, that means you're going to have to start over, which means you're going to need to bring in.
I can't see myself doing that, by the way. That was just my 2 cents on that.
It's almost like again, I don't want to answer the question because I don't see them regressing. I honestly don't see them regressing. It's a deeper conversation. Again, I'm a wait and see guy too, like John. I want to see if there's a splash trade. I want to see if there's an absolute kill in the draft where maybe and look, here's something to throw out there. Let me. There's nothing more dangerous sometimes in life than a very desperate, dangerous man. And Chris Grier might be that. And he's got a lot of compensation and future picks that he could just say, I might not be able to leave and take these guys with me in terms of the picks. So let me see if I can move up in this draft with moving some picks from next year.
That's fair.
Let me see what I could do. Because let me tell you this, and this goes back into, a wait and see. It goes back into the draft. They have a first and a second round pick.
That's fair.
And then a long ass time until their next pick, until the fifth round. It's 100 and some odd players. So you can move back in the first, you can move back in the second, but then you're cutting off the nose to spite your face on getting a Fontenot, one of the top end JPJs. You don't want to move back 5, 6, 7 picks to not get your top 3 guy. You know what I mean?
I agree.
They might need to pick that guy at 21 and then maybe trade a third rounder and a fourth rounder from next year to move back into the third or the fourth or something. They got to be creative. They got to get 3 or 4 more starters as it is right now. They did okay, but if they do not win a playoff game, you got to hit the nuke button. I'm sorry. I'm out.
Listen, I feel that I understand that we keep preaching we need offensive line, and Chris Grier's family said you guys are more worried. But I think a year after seeing what his offensive line went through, he should be worried now. He should be joining the fans and be worried about this offensive line, especially when your high-priced left tackle is probably going to get you 6 or 7 games this year. Best case scenario, 8 games. Teron Armstead is what he is. He's great when he's on the field, but ladies and gentlemen, he can't stay on the field. We need offensive line help. We need Tua to stay upright. For Tua to have another sign of a potential MVP season. And by the way, I agree. And me and Jason have both said this. We wouldn't give him the bag this year. We would let him play under that 5th-year option and then potentially give him that contract next year or even franchise tag him. Again, I don't think Tua would want to play under those things, but he can't decide what the business does. Jason, any final thoughts before we get out here? And by the way, 586 people watching. Thank you so much for supporting the Phins Factor episode on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. If you like the content, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to DolphinsTalk.com. And more so, if you don't like the content, if you think we need to improve somewhere, we like constructive criticism here at DolphinsTalk.com. Tell us in the comment section. We want to know how to better our content for you guys who are here supporting us right now. Jason, any final thoughts?
This is the draft season. We're literally, I think, 31 days away. We're exactly a month away. And, it's my favorite conversation. We got a first-round pick and a second-round pick. It's the first year that McDaniel has in his tenure, first and a second-round pick to build on. That first-round pick is probably going to be premium position. Edge rusher, wide receiver, believe it or not, cornerback, because that's what Grier pays for. If he goes off book, which I think sometimes you have to do, much like Mike McDaniel needing balance. If you have to go off book, you got to go with a purebred center or an interior guard, a right or a left guard who can play center because the signing with Brewer, you can now flex and move. Right. I think this is the year, Manny, to go off book. If you have to, You get JPJ if he's there. You get an interior or a center. But I'm not going to put my money on that. I think Grier will be Grier because he's very habitual. And that's what I will leave with. He is a very habitual GM.
I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for supporting Phins Factor Episode 2 here with Jason Sarney. Jason Sarney, again, I appreciate you filling in the big shoes that Marissa Marino left behind. Marissa, we hope you got everything under control on your end. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for supporting us. We love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you again next Tuesday at 8:15 on Phins Factor on DolphinsTalk.com. Peace.